If you're a FERS federal employee wondering what your FERS retirement income versus your current salary will really look like and how big the pay cut is when you retire from federal service, this video is for you. I'm going to show you a real example of a federal employee who goes from a $103,000 salary to about $11,000 of spendable income in his first year of retirement, and more importantly, what that means for you if you're in your 50s or early 60s and getting close to the door. My name is Tom. I'm a fee-only retirement planner who works with federal employees. And what I want to do in this video today is walk you through the math so you can see the income gap before you file your retirement paperwork, not after. We're going to follow one couple, Mike and Mary, and compare Mike's last year of federal service to his first year of retirement to really understand how much money actually lands in their checking account. So first, we have Mike. He's 59 and in his last full year of work. His wife, Mary, is 57 and she's still working. Mike's federal salary is $103,000. And now, as we go through his numbers, I want you to mentally plug in your salary and benefits so you can see where you might land. And if you're anything like my clients, you don't feel like you actually make $103,000. You feel what shows up in the bank account after all the withholdings, the insurance, savings, and taxes are deducted. That's what pays for the mortgage, the groceries, travel, the grandkids, all of it, right? So let's start there. Mike's gross salary is $103,000. From that, a bunch of things start to come out. First is federal tax. And on paper, Mike and Mary are in the 24% federal tax bracket, but that doesn't mean 24% of the whole $103,000 disappears. Because he's making traditional TSP contributions, he's paying FEHB premiums, and there are standard deductions, his actual federal tax bill in this example ends up around $7,000. Then there's state income tax. Again, not every dollar is taxed the same way, so the actual state bill is less than you might think from just looking at the bracket. Next, we have Social Security and Medicare. That's the 7.65% FICA tax you see on your pay stub. But again, it's not on every single dollar. On top of that, Mike is required to contribute 0.8% of his salary into the FERS system. That's separate from the TSP. He doesn't even see that money. It goes straight into the retirement system. He's also a strong saver, putting in about $30,000 a year into his traditional TSP, which is great for retirement savings. Then we have FEGLI life insurance. With the coverage he's chosen, that's about $2,900 a year while he's working. And FEHB health insurance is around $10,000 a year. Now, when you add all that up and subtract it from the $103,000, Mike's actual take-home pay, the money that hits his bank account, is about $42,000 a year. So even though he makes $103,000, he lives on $42,000. But he's used to it and built his lifestyle around that number for years. Now let's fast forward. Mike retires at 60, his salary goes to zero. He now has a FERS pension of about $30,000 a year. On top of that, because he's retired before 62, he gets the FERS Special Retirement Supplement. And in this example, it's about $780 a month or $9,360 a year. So on paper, Mike looks like he has roughly $39,000 of income between the pension and the supplement. And you might think, okay, that's not too far off from what he was living on before, but we have to run through the same process and determine what actually comes out. He still has federal income tax on the pension and the supplement. And in this example, that's roughly $3,900 a year. And there's still state income tax coming out around $1,800. There's no more Social Security or Medicare payroll tax, which is always nice. And there's no more 8% FERS contribution and no more TSP contributions because he's no longer working. But here's where retirement starts to really surprise people. Remember that FEGLI bill of about $2,900 while he was working? Well, once Mike retires and he turns 60, his FEGLI premium jumps. Based on the coverage he decided to keep and his age, that cost is now closer to $8,700 a year. His FEHB health insurance also goes up over time, so we've assumed a normal premium increase moving into the next planned year. And then there's the survivor benefit. Mike and Mary look at their situation and say, we don't have a way to replace this pension if Mike dies first. So they elect the full survivor benefit. and that costs 10% of his gross pension. On $30,000, that's about $3,000 a year, and that goes up as his pension gets cost of living adjustments along the way. And after all that, when you take his pension plus the supplement and subtract tax, FEGLI, FEHB, and the survivor benefit cost, Mike's new take-home income in the first year of retirement is about $11,300. So think about that. He was used to living on $42,000. Now he's staring at just over $11,000. That's over a $30,000 income gap. That's the difference between saying we can travel a few times a year and spoil the grandkids versus we have to stay home and hope the roof doesn't need replacing. Now put yourself in Mike and Mary's shoes. The bills didn't magically shrink or disappear, right? There's still the mortgage, the groceries, the grandkids, the travel they were dreaming about. Those are all still there. But the spendable income fell off a cliff. So how do you fill a $30,000 hole? Well, they could lower their standard of living. They could sell the extra car, downsize the house, cancel vacations. Those are options, but honestly, for most people watching this, that's not the retirement you worked decades to have, right? They could also spend down cash savings, and that works for a little while, but once the cash is gone, the monthly gap is still there. Mike could delay retirement or go back to work. Staying in federal service longer can actually help a lot. Bigger high 3, more savings going into his TSP. But once you've already retired from the government, that specific lever is gone. Now we're talking about another job in the private sector, which is not what most people want at age 62. The other obvious choice is to pull from the TSP. And that's honestly what most people do. There's nothing wrong with using the TSP in retirement. That's actually what it's there for. But because Mike put everything into the traditional side, every dollar that comes out will be taxable. So if he needs $30,000 of extra cash to close the gap, he can't just pull $30,000. He might need to withdraw something closer to $40,000 so that after the federal and state taxes are taken out, there's about $30,000 left to spend. And once you start stacking those withdrawals on top of the pension and on top of the supplement, you climb right back up into the same tax bracket you were while you were working. And that's why so many feds are surprised to find out they didn't really drop a tax bracket in retirement, even through with their paycheck stopping because they stopped working. And by the way, we've been pretty generous here in this example. We haven't added long-term care costs, Medicare Part B premiums at 65, any unexpected big expenses like a new roof or helping out your kids, or the fact that the FERS cost of living adjustments don't fully keep up with inflation. We also haven't talked about Mary's eventual retirement, right? We haven't looked at what she saved in her own retirement accounts. When her paycheck stops and you're both fully retired and you're now relying on two sets of savings instead of her salary plus his pension, the entire income picture changes again. So if you're already staring at a $30,000 gap in year one, all those other pieces just tighten the vice even more. So what does all of this mean if you're a federal employee in your 50s or early 60s? First, your gross salary is not your retirement income. Second, even your current take-home is not what your future take-home will be. And third, if you just let the government's default plan play out and hope it all works out, there's a very real chance you end up frustrated and strapped for cash in retirement. Now, the good news is a lot of these levers are under your control before you retire. You can decide how much goes to the traditional TSP versus the Roth TSP. You can decide how much FEGLI you keep. You can look at the survivor benefit options in the context of your whole plan instead of just checking a box at the last minute. You can choose a retirement date strategically instead of just circling your 60th birthday. So there's always options. And if you're within 5 to 10 years of retirement, I'd strongly encourage you to run your own comparison. Last year of work versus first year of retirement, line by line, and see what your actual income gap looks like. And if all of this already feels like way more math and more complicated than you want to manage on your own, don't worry, that is completely normal. If you'd rather not do it alone, this is the exact work I do with federal employees. We build a federal retirement blueprint that shows your pension and your health insurance, your TSP, your Social Security, and your taxes. and we figure out how to close that gap before you file and step away from service. If that would be helpful, there's a link below where you can request that planning session. And if you want to keep learning on your own, in this next video, I talk about the big changes coming up with the TSP plan in 2026, how they will affect your retirement, and what federal employees need to know. So click here to watch, and I'll see you over there.